Yesterday, I made a video about Mark Rober and his very exciting, very fun demo of self-driving cars. Well, are they? I mean, he's just comparing a prototype from one company to the very, very old technology of another company. It felt a little bit dishonest, and it felt like it needed to be addressed. And then, of course, the comments began. And my goodness, did the comments begin. I do appreciate that the haters took the time to actually watch the video this time. That's not always something they do, but there are some misunderstandings that are still lingering that I feel we need to address, so we're going to do that. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Ozza. So what we've got here is some comments, some very fun stuff, good points. I had similar technical issues while watching, but I didn't see anything nefarious in this. I just thought it was another fun Rober video. And I got a few comments like this. Brian, why are you even addressing this? Nobody would misunderstand it. People did. People did. I didn't want to address it, but overnight after his video came out, my channel was flooded with comments. I was getting mentions and DMs on X saying, hey man, why aren't you did you know that this system is a failure? People saw this and thought it was absolutely scientific. It's not scientific. It's entertainment. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. But people looked at it and said, this is proof that vision only will never work. So I have to address it. And I had comments coming in on videos that were months old, years old, saying, see, proof. I told you, I always knew. So that's why it had to be addressed. Another common theme was lawsuits. I smell a lawsuit. I saw probably 24 comments that Tesla should sue them into oblivion, and they shouldn't. Any channel that's been around for any amount of time knows where the line is. And this video did not cross the line. Not even close. It didn't come anywhere close to the line. If a channel is telling you, if someone on YouTube who's been publishing for any amount of time, like any serious amount of publishing, says this is worth a lawsuit, they're lying to you, or they're incompetent to a degree that you should not take anything they say seriously because they know that there's no line that was crossed. You can make entertainment even if it's not favorable to someone. It's just how it works. And if anyone's going to open the can of worms on lawsuits, I don't think it's going to be Tesla, and I don't think it's going to be Elon, because it is a can of worms. Do you really want misinformation being something that you can be sued over constantly? There's quite a bit of that coming from all sides. And it's also just a bad look. Just imagine the optics of the headline. It wouldn't stop anyone. It would just mean that the people going after Tesla would be progressively poorer and poorer. But there are plenty. There's no end to the number of poor people who would be willing to get sued for $1 kajillion they don't have. Wouldn't be worth it. Not a good look. Reflecting on a lot of Mark Rober's videos, he does this all the time. He sets up bets and challenges with other people, many times kids, leaves out details, and then wins using an unfair advantage. We have seen a bit of that. And it's fun. I used to like a lot of his videos, but after a while it gets old. Similar to how I used to like Mythbusters, but eventually I got to the point where I couldn't stand the show because they started focusing on theatrics over science, and they had so many unaccounted, unaddressed variables that the end results / conclusions were invalidated. I had that problem with Mythbusters too. I would look at their methodology and say, boy, you missed some really big, glaring, obvious things. Well, they did so because they're on a time crunch and it's entertainment. Mark Rober's been caught performing some theatrics in the past. His Porch Pirates videos used actors in some cases instead of real porch pirates. Well, you know, we don't want to get those people in trouble, or it's too hard to get the footage, or the footage didn't look, whatever the case may be, it's theatrics. Does it invalidate the whole thing? I don't know. It's a bit outside my area of expertise. Can't really say. It's just unfortunate. So then we've got the firehose rain was incredibly disingenuous. Like when 60 Minutes couldn't get the Jeep to roll over, so they added weights. We've seen that. There was an insurance symposium, I don't know what it was, some kind of insurance event in Germany a few years back, where they wanted to talk about the dangers of electric cars. So they rolled a Tesla and set off fireworks to make it explode. That's not fair. That's not fair. I don't think there was a lawsuit on that either, and that one was egregious. The amount of rain coming down was too much. It wasn't rain at that point. It was a waterfall. It was a wall of water. And yes, the Lidar did see it. They did see it. But what they didn't see was the reality. If it had been even a very heavy rain, you would have seen the obstacle through it and not stopped, and stopped for the obstacle and not stopped for the water itself. This is a very complicated issue because what you're seeing as vision failing is actually Lidar failing, because the Lidar stopped not because there was a child mannequin in the way, a Daniken in the way, but because there was a solid wall of impassable water. That's phantom braking. He complained about phantom braking in the Teslas, but didn't complain about phantom braking in the Lidar. Well, because Lidar, it wasn't phantom, it did need to stop. Yeah, but it didn't know that. It didn't know that the obstacle was not what it appeared to be based on laser. I am not a Tesla fan anymore, but the fact that he had to lie and cheat to get the results he wanted proves to the point that Tesla FSD must have passed every test. Yeah, why are we using autopilot? Surely Mark knows the difference. There is no chance that he doesn't. Why didn't he use FSD? It would make sense to use the best, the latest, the greatest. It's very strange. And we know that this whole thing was set up because there was already a cutout in the wall in the fun shape of a kapow explosion that he wanted to see when the car went through it. That car was always going to go through the wall, no matter what. So it is reasonable to assume, based on certainly the omission of information we have, but also what little information we do have, that FSD was attempted and FSD performed better than it was hoped to. So they had to jerry-rig everything. Would be interesting to see this Mark Rober's test done with FSD enabled, like, actually do the test instead of lying. So let's talk about that. Could I, if I had the budget, reproduce the test in a way that actually showed FSD will stop 100%, without a doubt, but I would be just as likely to be gaming the test as him, because there's degrees between failure and success. If I make my mural 2% darker than the background, 8% dark, at some point, FSD will see it. And at some point it won't. If I make it photo accurate, match the sky, the time of day, everything, no human would notice it either. Somewhere in there is the difference between success and failure. This test was engineered to make Lidar look good. And it did. It made it look good. I wonder if Luminar will go bankrupt. Seems they would deserve it. I would disagree with that, though. They're just trying to do their thing. I don't think they're just trying to survive. Now, the problem is we're watching these tests. I've seen a number of people say that they will no longer subscribe to Mark because they now believe that he is dishonest. And that's when we get into the gell-mann amnesia effect. You ever read a news story that you happen to know an awful lot about? There was a murder case involving a family member where we got to see all the daily news unfolding about it. And it was breathtaking how wrong it was. And then I get to see battery stories and I read them and I'm like, boy, these are missing some pretty important pieces. So we look at stories and say, when I know about it, the arbiters of truth are terrible. When I don't know about it, they're probably right. And that's a blind spot we all have. When Wendover Productions made the video about Tesla, I realized, oh my gosh, he's got everything wrong. This is about 30% true and 70% nonsense. Oh no. What else have I learned from this channel that is similarly completely wrong? And the answer is, I don't know. Therefore, I have to decide to what extent, if any, I will trust this channel ever again. And in my case, I've watched a couple videos since then, but it's not the same. So let's have fun designing unsolvable puzzles for commonly perceived problems. And then there's Brian's video, one that has actual value. Thank you, Doug. They are unsolvable. These tests were catered specifically. The fog is a good example. That wasn't real fog. That was simulated fog. That was the kind of fog that Lidar can handle, but vision cannot. Where real fog is something that vision can handle a little bit and Lidar cannot handle hardly at all. I think you have weak counter arguments. There is no visual difference between white smoke and fog. That's true. Glycol reflects light very well. Glycerin, whatever it is they're going to use in the fog machine, reflects very well, but it doesn't have the same properties as water droplets, as suspended water droplets in the air. They can have the same visual density from minor to you can't see your hand a foot in front of your face. I've been in the whole range. Now I'm going to just finish this comment real quick because it is a great comment. Thank you, Willin to go 1. I'm puzzled how they got FSD to drive into a wall of smoke. Seems like an addressable problem, but not one that would turn up very often in the millions of miles of recorded driving. I don't know that FSD would just keep driving like that. I get warnings about obstructed cameras when I'm on a dark stretch of highway and the side cameras can't see anything. I get that too. Cameras are obstructed. My friend, that's called nighttime. It's called nighttime. I can't, I'm blind. There's nothing to see. Side cameras can't see. And we all know FSD notes on the screen, every person and dog anywhere near the road. All true. So let's start about the visual difference with the fog. This other person, Truth AF says, Truth AF. How do you know we use smoke and not fog? Well, fog machines don't make literal fog. They make something that looks like fog. Wrong. You need to see the raw footage. So we've seen the raw footage. The difference between smoke and fog is the density of the water. Smoke machines, do not produce real fog because they would need to have a 55-gallon drum of water. And the amount of energy it would take to produce that much actual fog, that much condensate, would be prohibitive. It would be a problematic amount. That's not how you generate fog. What you do is smoke and mirrors. It's literally smoke and mirrors. You're making fake fog. So Lidar can see right through it because glycol droplets are very, very small. And the water droplets, in order to see them, have to be quite thick, quite dense, quite common. So let's talk about the raw footage because we have now seen it. It was posted after I recorded that video yesterday. And big thanks to Matt, friend of the show, big channel supporter, all that. Thank you, Matt. I was looking for that incident with the Roadrunner painting. Thanks. I have a response to what did we miss? I've been doing a bunch of calculations to get to the truth, like Mark would have before gaming his test. He literally engages autopilot at a distance not even a human driver would be able to react in time. You can see him engaging autopilot 3 seconds, 150 feet before the wall. He's an embarrassment to engineers. Here's the math. 40 miles an hour is 58.67 feet per second. Average reaction time, human reaction time, 1.5 seconds. Distance traveled during reaction, 88 feet. 3 and Y has a braking deceleration of approximately 0.91 Gs, so 32.2 feet per second squared, giving a braking distance of 58.8 feet, total stopping distance 147 feet. So the time to stop, including reaction, would be 3.5 seconds. Meaning, if a human had been in that situation, you also would have hit the wall. I personally believe they tried it on FSD and it succeeded, and they tried it on autopilot and it succeeded. And then they did a take, multiple takes to get the gotcha shot. And then an engineer, maybe Mark, did some quick math and gamed autopilot by engaging it at a distance that its reaction speed was unable to brake in time. I don't think it was Mark hitting the brakes. Now, I do think it was Mark hitting the brakes, but at a point when it was already too late because there just wasn't enough time. So we've seen the raw footage. It's all there. And of course, well, yeah, but what about the phantom braking? Look, the phantom braking shot was pulled from someone else's YouTube video. Okay, that makes more sense. It is so rare, I do not know how you would have made it happen on the day. Like if you said, Brian, let's go out. I need footage of phantom braking. I couldn't get it for you. Not in a day, maybe in months and months, maybe. But I'd really have to game it. I'd really have to say, well, where's some places with long shadows that would drape the highway in such a way where maybe the highway's a little wavy, or I don't know, someone else's example. David says, every time I come across a tunnel painted on a wall across a busy road, I grab the can of paint out of my trunk and I paint a train in the tunnel coming towards me. And then I watch the train run over the coyote. It happens all the time. That's why I keep paint in my trunk with a brush already in it. And I'm going to take issue with this. Clearly you would want to put it in your frunk instead. I'm just thinking, David, you're on the right track, specifically train, but I think we could do just a little bit better. Maybe have a stencil. That would save time. Mark used the latest Luminar tech with a Luminar engineer in the car, yet uses 5-year-old Tesla software, autopilot, with an old build Tesla, hardware 3, without a Tesla engineer present. He didn't even use FSD software. I mean, he used, as the title of his video, self-driving car, where everyone knows that AP will never be used for self-driving, yet FSD will be. Sounds very fishy. All good points. All difficult to refute. Why not admit that Lidar would be a sensible thing to also feed into FSD to eliminate any doubt that there is an obstacle or not? Elon has too much pride to admit that some sensors are superior to others. This is a very good question. Why? If we know that Lidar can see those very extremely rare edge cases, as someone had said, well, there's wildfires have smoke. Shouldn't a car be able to see through that? We've logged tens of billions of miles on autopilot and FSD and have not heard issues about it. That suggests to me the circumstance is exceptionally rare. There were wildfires recently in urban areas, at least suburban areas. Well, people would need to drive through smoke and fog there. Well, I didn't see any taxis operating, so I don't know how relevant it might be. Maybe. It's still an outlier, but why not put in the equipment to cater to those extremely rare situations? And the answer is, while you're making 0.1% of scenarios a little bit safer, you're making the other 99.9% of scenarios less safe. You're adding a whole bunch of extra data that, of course, does cost money to compute, that does cost resource, that does take all that. But let's ignore money. This is safety we're talking about, and it's not that much money. What we're really talking about is more false positives. What do you do when the car says, wait a minute, I think what I'm looking at here is a mural? You know, the finish line over a rally race. Maybe it's a banner at the entrance of a racetrack. If it sees that and slams on the brakes, you'd be furious. And then the computer would pop up and say, sorry, I thought it was a Roadrunner cartoon mural. You'd be livid. And that's the sort of thing that you would get if you try and train for scenarios that don't happen. If you start looking for ghosts, you'll find them. So adding more input does not make the system smarter. Understanding your input is what makes the system smarter. Too long didn't watch, pick one topic and get to the point. My friend, I'm responding to a video that covered multiple topics. If you don't like Mark Rober's style, I don't know why you watched it, let alone this. I have to address the issues raised, and by talking about Space Mountain, I'm getting to the core of the problem with his video. He didn't actually want to know about Space Mountain. He wanted a setup that would allow him to introduce the whole premise of the Lidar. Come on, bro, you think you know more than a rocket scientist? Haters gonna hate. Common sense, Lidar is better in fog or mirror. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by mirror. No, I don't think I know more than a rocket scientist. I said that in the video. I literally said I would put us head to head and guarantee you that he would beat me. That's not what I said. What I said is that I can see flaws in his methodology. I don't have to be a genius to see flaws in his methodology. I just have to be smarter than the people who were flooding my comments saying that this is science, when it wasn't. It's just entertainment. Am I going to stop watching Mark Rober? No, I'm confident that his very silly tests on squirrels and porch pirates is sufficiently fun that I'll continue watching it, maybe forever. But in the meantime, tens of millions of people have watched his video and come to the conclusion that vision only is unsafe, and the data does not prove that out. And lastly, and this one is a little bit more personal to Mark, so imagine this guy misleads his 60 million plus followers. Some of those followers were in the market to buy a new car, so they decided not to buy a Tesla because they think it's not safe, even though it's the safest car on the road. Now they buy a different car because of Mark. They get in an accident, they die. Is this going to happen? I mean, numbers don't lie. That death is on Mark's hand. Congratulations on your future homicides, Mark. Side note, I used to love all of his videos. I think he does a lot for getting kids interested in science, but this is not ethical. So now I have to question everything he's put out, which of course brings us back to the gell-mann amnesia effect. You say things that are demonstrably untrue. Some people are going to realize that they don't know how much truth you are telling. And it's unfortunate. Some people will choose not to buy a Tesla because of this video. Some will. In terms of crash likeliness, Teslas are very unlikely to crash. In terms of death rates, they're high because they're very fast cars. And when humans are in control, humans are prone to making poor decisions, especially involving speed, intoxication, and distraction. The first Cybertruck death, the toxicology report finally came out. It was not just alcohol, but also other illicit substances. And of course, high velocity was a factor. It's unfortunate, but that's how humans are. If they had been using FSD, things might have gone differently. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say there's blood on your hands, but you can think about that. You can think about that. So thank you to all of you for the comments you've left. Everybody else, what did I miss? What did I misunderstand? Thank you to the patrons, to the YouTube channel members, to the subscribers who make this channel happen. Because I don't have 65 million subscribers. Mark makes more money in an hour, I'm sure, than I do in a month. And that's why he's able to perform such exhaustive and elaborate tests while I can't. So thank you. I appreciate that, one and all. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the flippity flop.